Today's storms and those over the last month have made farmers pretty worried about this year's crop.
News 8 Now's Dua Israr spoke with a Westby farmer who says many Wisconsin farmers are racing to get their seeds and grain into the soil. Dua?
Amy and Jordan, farmers say the weather is the reason they're behind on their planting schedule, which could lead to supply issues later in the year.
Third-generation farmer Darren Von Ruden's livelihood has always followed Mother Nature's rules. If you don't get your corn in by the 5th of May, you're going to lose a bushel a day.
You know, we're at the 10th of May already.
Farmers begin planting crops early to mid-April.
You want to see that ground temperature close to 50 or above if you can.
But this year's April has been cooler than average.
You should be looking at 10 to 12 inches of growth on that. Most of it's only 2 to 3. And that's because of the cold weather.
And while some farmers had hope for the start of May, the weather had other plans.
Being the crops aren't in, it would have been nice to have some dry weather first couple weeks of May.
Von Ruden says farmers are working around the clock to get their crops in, but even now, some will have to wait.
You know, we're looking at maybe another 5, 6, maybe even 7 days before a lot of guys can really get in the fields if the weather stays the way it's predicted right now.
Cold weather isn't the only issue farmers are facing.
Right now, farmers are paying just about 3 times as much for a ton of fertilizer as what we were a year ago at this time.
Von Ruden says fertilizer prices will be high for the next 1 to 2 years or longer.
But if the war in Ukraine lasts a couple of years, it could be 4 or 5 years even before we see that reduced price.
Both the weather and high fertilizer prices this season may result in a loss of 10 to 20 acres of Wisconsin's corn and soybean crops per day.
That'll affect the supply more than anything. Every bushel is going to count at the end of the year.
Despite the late planting season, Von Ruden says it may still be a profitable year.
Usually when crops are getting put in the ground late, crop prices stay and remain fairly good throughout the years.
And while the farming season isn't off to a great start,
as farmers, if we didn't have the weather to complain about, I don't know, well, I guess we complain about prices all the time too. So
Von Ruden says he and others continue to be hopeful.
Von Ruden says farmers should have a variety of crops this year, along with corn and soybean. Von Ruden says farmers should look into planting small grain since it will grow quicker.
And Dua, I want to ask a question. Von Ruden brought up the war in Ukraine and fertilizer. Can you explain why the war is having an impact on those products?
Yeah, so Russia and Ukraine are one of the world's largest distributors of fertilizer and wheat.
All right. Thanks, Dua.
Well, Von Ruden says farmers can also plant wheat since it will be in demand and requires less fertilizer.